Talon Reed adjusted his translator earpiece as the diplomatic shuttle docked with the Luminan research vessel. After 3 years as Earth's linguistic ambassador to newly contacted civilizations, he'd developed a reputation for building rapport with even the most reserved alien species. But the Luminans, with their rigid social protocols, an emphasis on emotional restraint, had proven particularly challenging. Remember, Captain Harlow reminded him. The Luminans value precision above all. No jokes, no idioms, and absolutely no physical contact. Talon nodded, though a mischievous smile played at the corners of his mouth. Don't worry, Captain. I've reviewed their cultural briefings thoroughly. I'll be the model of diplomatic decorum. The airlock cycled open to reveal 3 Luminans, waiting in perfect formation. Talon's gaze immediately fixed on the central figure, slightly shorter than her companions, with skin the color of twilight amethyst and delicate features that seemed to shimmer in the ship's ambient lighting. Her eyes, large and iridescent like opals, regarded him with scientific curiosity. "Welcome aboard the Celestial Harmony," she said, her voice melodic despite the translator's mechanical overlay. "I am Senior Researcher Nylira Vichuum. I will be your primary scientific liaison during our collaborative mission." Talon bowed slightly, the appropriate Luminon greeting, and responded in careful Luminon, shocking his hosts with the fluency he'd achieved in just weeks of study. "The honor of this exchange enriches both our peoples. I am Talon Reed, linguistic ambassador of Earth." Nylira's eyes widened slightly, the most emotion he'd seen from a Luminan yet. "Your pronunciation is unexpectedly adequate," she noted, which Talon recognized as high praise from her species. Over the next few days, Talon shadowed Nylira through the research vessel, documenting Luminan scientific approaches for Earth's archives. Their mission studying a rare stellar phenomenon occurring in neutral space between their territories required close collaboration. "Your species approaches research with unusual spontaneity," Nylira observed one day as Talon suggested an unplanned sensor recalibration. "It is inefficient, yet effective," Talon countered with a smile. "Sometimes the unexpected path yields the best results." Nylira's head tilted slightly. "This is not the Luminan way. Perhaps that's why our peoples have much to learn from each other." As weeks passed, Talon noticed subtle changes in Nylira's behavior. She began anticipating his unorthodox suggestions, sometimes even implementing modifications before he proposed them. During their shared meals in the ship's observatory, he caught her watching him when she thought his attention was elsewhere. One evening, as they reviewed data streams together, their hands accidentally brushed. Luminan cultural protocols dictated immediate apology and separation, yet Nylira hesitated, her fingers lingering near his for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "Forgive the inappropriate contact," she said finally, withdrawing her hand. "Nothing to forgive," Talon replied softly. "Where I come from, accidental touches between colleagues are commonplace." "Your world must be chaotic," she whispered, but there was no disapproval in her tone, only curiosity. That night, Talon recorded in his personal log, "The Luminans aren't as emotionally restrained as their diplomatic profiles suggest. They feel deeply, but express differently. Particularly intriguing is senior researcher Nylira, whose scientific brilliance is matched only by the mystery of what she keeps beneath her composed exterior. I find myself increasingly drawn to unraveling that mystery. Professionally, of course." He paused the recording, knowing the last part wasn't entirely true. Something about Nylira fascinated him beyond diplomatic curiosity. As he gazed out his viewport at the stars, Talon wondered if the greatest discovery of this mission might have nothing to do with stellar phenomena after all. The laboratory aboard the Celestial Harmony hummed with activity as Talon and Nylira worked side by side, analyzing the unusual radiation patterns from the stellar phenomenon. 3 months into their joint mission, they had developed a rhythm that bridged their different approaches. "The energy signature shows a 7% increase since yesterday," Nylira noted, her slender purple fingers manipulating the holographic display with practiced precision. "This contradicts all established Luminan models." Talon leaned closer, his shoulder nearly touching hers. "Sometimes the universe enjoys proving our theories wrong. That's what makes science an adventure." Adventure. Nylira repeated the word as if testing its flavor. Luminans do not typically associate research with adventure. We see it as a methodical path to understanding. And humans see it as an exciting journey into the unknown, Talon replied. Maybe the truth lies somewhere between our perspectives. A small smile, rare and fleeting, crossed Nylira's face. Perhaps. Later that evening, Talon invited Nylira to experience an Earth tradition, sharing a meal cooked by hand rather than produced by molecular synthesizers. The ship's small culinary bay had been temporarily reconfigured to accommodate his request. These are ingredients from my home region, Talon explained as he prepared a simple pasta dish with herbs and spices from Earth. Cooking is more than sustenance for humans, it's connection, history, and sometimes even a form of artistic expression. Nylira watched intently. Luminans view eating as purely functional. This approach seems ... double quotes inefficient. Talon teased, now familiar with her favorite critique. I was going to say intriguing. She corrected him, and their eyes met briefly before she looked away. When they finally sat down to eat, Talon noticed how Nylira mimicked his posture and movements, trying to follow human dining customs. Her natural grace made even this unfamiliar ritual seem elegant. On Lumina, she said between careful bites, individuals rarely share meals except during ceremonial gatherings. Personal nutrition is considered private. So this is quite scandalous by your standards, Talon asked with a playful grin. Moderately improper, Nylira admitted. Yet educational? Cultural anthropologists on my world would approve for scientific purposes, of course. Cute. Noting the slight violet darkening along her cheekbones, a Luminan blush, he'd learned as weeks passed. Their scientific collaboration yielded groundbreaking insights into the stellar phenomenon. But Talon found himself increasingly distracted by Nylira herself. The way she tilted her head when processing new information, her subtle reactions to his jokes' confusion, giving way to understanding. Then the careful control of amusement she couldn't quite hide. The graceful movements of her hands as she worked. For her part, Nylira began asking questions about human customs beyond what was necessary for their research, especially about relationships and pair bonding. Humans form attachments based on emotional compatibility? She asked during one of their evening data reviews. Without consideration for genetic optimization or social advancement? Love isn't a scientific equation, Talon explained. It's about connection, understanding, accepting someone for who they are, finding someone who makes you feel more yourself. Fascinating, Nylira murmured. Inefficient, but beautiful in concept. One night, the stellar phenomenon they were studying produced an unexpected light, show waves of color rippling across the visible spectrum. The ship's observation deck offered the perfect viewing position, and they found themselves standing side by side before the vast viewport. In human culture, Talon said softly, we make wishes on beautiful astronomical events. What purpose does this serve? Nylira asked, her eyes reflecting the cosmic display. None that's scientifically quantifiable, he admitted, but it makes us happy. A moment of silence passed between them. What would you wish for? Nylira finally asked, her voice barely audible. Talon turned to face her, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. More moments like this, he said truthfully. Nylira didn't move away as Luminan protocol would dictate. Instead, she studied his face with an intensity that made his heart race. Your species' emotional expressiveness once seemed chaotic to me, she confessed. Now I find it increasingly necessary to understand. As the colors from the stellar phenomenon played across her purple features, Talon realized he was no longer seeing her as merely a fascinating alien colleague. Something fundamental had shifted between them. Something neither Earth's diplomatic protocols nor Lumina's rigid social structures had prepared them for. The crystalline caves of Lumina stretched before Talon in breathtaking majesty, their translucent walls refracting light into countless rainbow patterns. As part of a cultural exchange initiative, Nylira had arranged for him to visit her homeworld, a rare privilege for a non-Luminan. These caves are sacred to my people, Nylira explained as she guided him through passages that seemed carved from pure light. We believe they contain the memories of our ancestors, captured in crystalline resonance. "It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen," Talon said honestly, his voice hushed with reverence. They had traveled with a small Luminan scientific delegation, but had gradually separated from the group to explore a less frequented section of the cave system. Here the crystals pulsed with a gentle blue luminescence that cast soft shadows across Nylira's features. "Few outsiders have witnessed these inner chambers," she told him. "I wished for you to see this aspect of my world." "Thank you for trusting me," Talon replied, touched by the gesture. As they ventured deeper, Nylira explained Luminon customs surrounding the caves, how young Luminans visited during important life transitions, seeking wisdom in the crystalline frequencies. How some came to find clarity when making significant life decisions. "Have you come here often?" Talon asked. "3 times, she answered. "When I completed my education, when I chose my scientific specialization, and double quotes, she hesitated yesterday. Before bringing you here today." The implication wasn't lost on Talon. This visit held special significance to her. They reached a small chamber where the crystals formed a natural dome overhead. Sitting on a smooth stone formation, they fell into comfortable silence, watching the gentle pulses of light around them. In Luminan tradition, Nylira finally said, "Visiting these caves with another indicates profound trust. It is ... intimate." Talon felt the weight of her words. "I'm honored." "You have changed how I perceive many things, Talon Reed," she continued, her voice taking on an unusual softness. "Your perspective has been disruptive to my ordered understanding of the universe." "I hope that's a good thing," he said with a gentle smile. "It is uncomfortable," she admitted, "yet necessary for growth." In the blue glow of the crystals, Talon noticed how Nylira seemed less guarded than usual. Her posture was more relaxed, her expressions less controlled. Something about this sacred place allowed her to set aside some of the rigid Luminon protocols. "You know," he said playfully, attempting to lighten the suddenly intense mood, "with your scientific brilliance, cultural depth, and not to mention those amazing crystal lights reflecting in your eyes right now, you'd make a remarkably appealing life partner." He meant it as a light-hearted compliment, perhaps slightly flirtatious, but safe within their established banter. But Nylira went completely still, her opalescent eyes widening as she stared at him. Talon immediately feared he'd committed a terrible cultural offense. "I'm sorry, was that inappropriate?" "I didn't mean to, I agree," Nylira whispered, cutting off his apology. "You ... what?" "I agree," she repeated, her voice stronger now, though still soft. "By Luminon standards, I would be considered a compatible match. And by human standards?" She paused, gathering courage. "Do you find me appealing, despite our differences?" The directness of her question caught him off guard. Gone was the scientific detachment she typically maintained, replaced by vulnerable honesty that touched him deeply. "Yes," Talon admitted, his heart racing. "Very much so. But I never thought you might feel similarly." Nylira finished for him. "I have been analyzing these unfamiliar emotions for some time. The results are conclusive if disconcerting." In the crystal-lit silence that followed, they faced each other with new understanding. Centuries of evolution on different worlds, different biologies, different social structures. Yet here they were, connected by something that transcended those differences. Slowly, deliberately breaking every Luminan protocol regarding personal space, Nylira extended her hand toward his. Talon met her halfway, her fingers intertwining purple against tannin, a touch that was now fully intentional, no longer accidental. "This changes everything," Nylira whispered. "Yes," Talon agreed. "But maybe that's exactly what both our worlds need." News of Talon and Nylira's developing relationship spread through diplomatic channels with alarming speed. What had begun as a private connection in the sacred caves of Lumina quickly became a matter of interplanetary politics. "The Council of Elders has expressed concern about your association with the human ambassador," Director Zelrix informed Nylira during a formal review session. The Elder Luminan's face remained expressionless, but disapproval radiated through his carefully chosen words. "Our research collaboration has yielded unprecedented scientific advances," Nylira responded evenly. maintaining the composure expected of her kind, despite the turmoil beneath. This goes beyond professional collaboration, senior researcher. Reports indicate inappropriate personal involvement. Alira straightened her posture. I was unaware that the Council monitored individual relationships. When they impact interspecies diplomacy, they become our concern, Zelrix countered. Humans are emotionally volatile and culturally unpredictable. Your judgment appears compromised. Meanwhile, Talon faced similar resistance from Earth's diplomatic corps. Captain Harlow had summoned him to a secure communication chamber aboard the visiting Earth vessel. What were you thinking? Harlow demanded, pacing the small room. We're finally establishing stable relations with one of the most technologically advanced species in this sector. And you decide to complicate everything with a romance? With respect, Captain, my personal relationship with senior researcher Nylira is separate from our diplomatic mission. Nothing is separate in diplomacy, Harlow snapped. The Luminan High Council is questioning whether humans can be trusted to respect their cultural boundaries. There's talk of restricting future scientific exchanges. That evening, Talon and Nylira met in a quiet corner of the Botanical Research Module, one of the few places offering privacy amid increasing scrutiny. The situation is becoming untenable, Nylira said softly, her usual composure fraying at the edges. My assignment to the joint research team is being reconsidered. Talon reached for her hand, still marveling at how natural it felt despite their physiological differences. Earth's diplomatic corps isn't happy either. They're threatening to reassign me. Perhaps we were naive to believe our worlds were ready for this kind of connection, Nylira whispered. No, Talon said firmly. We're not the problem. The fear of difference is, around them, exotic plants from a dozen worlds created a lush sanctuary, different species, thriving together despite evolving on planets light years apart. Talon gestured to their surroundings. Look at this garden. Species from incompatible environments adapted to coexist. If plants can do it, why can't sentient beings? A ghost of a smile touched Nylira's lips. An imperfect analogy, but poetically apt. Their moment of peace was interrupted by an urgent communication. The stellar phenomenon they had been studying had entered an unexpected phase, requiring immediate attention from both human and Luminan research teams as they hurried to the observatory. Personal concerns temporarily set aside for scientific duty, Talon had a realization. This might be our answer, he murmured. The stellar anomaly? Nylira questioned. What brings different peoples together? Common purpose. Shared discovery. His eyes lit with determination. If we can demonstrate that our connection enhances our scientific collaboration rather than compromises it. The next several days saw Talon and Nylira working tirelessly, channeling their personal connection into professional synergy. Their complementary approaches, human intuition, paired with Luminan precision, yielded breakthrough after breakthrough in understanding the unprecedented stellar event. When they presented their findings to a joint session of Earth and Luminan officials, the results were undeniable. Together, they had achieved what neither species could have accomplished alone. Perhaps the Luminan High Elder conceded after reviewing their data. There is merit in exploring new forms of collaboration between our peoples. It wasn't explicit approval of their relationship, but it was an opening crack in the rigid opposition they had faced. Later, in the privacy of the observation deck, they watched the stellar phenomenon begin its final, spectacular phase. Do we have a future, Talon? Nylira asked, abandoning Luminon indirectness for human forthrightness. He turned to her, taking in her violet features illuminated by the cosmic display. I don't know. But I believe what we found is worth fighting for if we have to forge a path where none has existed before. That, she replied with newfound certainty, is something I find myself increasingly willing to do. One standard year after their first meeting, Talon stood on the observation platform of the newly established Harmony Stationa Joint Human Luminan, outpost orbiting the neutral space where their fateful stellar phenomenon had occurred. The station represented a diplomatic breakthrough, but to Talon, it symbolized something far more personal. Nervous? Asked Dr. Alina Kapoor, Earth's chief diplomatic officer and one Of the few humans who had supported his relationship with Nyalira from the beginning, terrified, Talon admitted with a laugh. Excited, grateful. I'm not sure there's a word in either of our languages for what I'm feeling right now. Then perhaps you're creating something new, Elena suggested, just as you two have been doing all along. The observation dome had been transformed for the occasion. Luminant crystal formations harmonized with Earth botanical arrangements, creating an environment that honored both worlds without belonging fully to either. Perfect metaphor for the union about to take place. As the ceremonial time approached, representatives from both species gathered in a semicircle. Though some faces still showed reservation or skepticism, their presence itself represented progress. 1 year of persistent diplomacy, groundbreaking scientific collaboration, an unwavering commitment had gradually shifted perspectives. The ambient lighting dimmed as the station rotated to face the stellar remnant, now a pulsing nebula of extraordinary beauty, its energy signature still being studied by joint research teams. Against this cosmic backdrop, Nyalira entered. She wore traditional Luminan ceremonial attire with subtle earthen modifications, flowing robes in deepest purple accented with silver elements that caught and reflected light like terrestrial water. Around her neck hung a pendant containing a crystal from the sacred caves and a small stone from Talon's hometown on Earth, fused together through a process she had personally developed. As she approached, Talon felt momentarily overwhelmed by the journey that had brought them here. From awkward first meetings to forbidden connection, from opposition to grudging acceptance, and finally to this moment of possibility, the stars witness our convergence, Nyalira began, speaking the first words of a ceremony they had crafted together, blending traditions from both worlds. Two paths joining to form one, Talon continued, while remaining true to their origins. The ceremony proceeded with an elegant simplicity that belied the complex negotiations required to create it. They exchanged promises in both languages, their words translated for all present, yet somehow most meaningful in the space between them where no translation was needed. When they sealed their union with the touching of hands, fingers intertwined in the gesture that had first acknowledged their feelings in luminas, Crystal Cave's soft light emanated from Nyalira's pendant, casting rainbows across their joined figures. Later, during the celebration that followed, they found a quiet moment alone in one of the station's research labs, the environment where their connection had first blossomed. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when we first met?" Talon asked, still marveling at the reality of their union. Nyalira considered the question with characteristic thoughtfulness. Luminans do not typically indulge in such speculative thinking, but know this exceeded all possible probability calculations. "A statistical anomaly," Talon teased. "Like our stellar phenomenon," she agreed, her eyes shimmering with emotion she no longer tried to conceal. "Rare, unexpected, and changing our understanding of what's possible." The following day would bring new challenges. They would continue their roles as unofficial ambassadors, navigating the complex integration of their cultures. The newly established exchange program, allowing humans and Luminans to study each other's sciences and arts required their guidance, and their personal journey of bridging differences would continue with each passing day. But tonight belonged to them alone, two beings from worlds apart, who had found in each other something worth crossing the stars for. "The Council of Elders has approved our request," Nyalira said suddenly, breaking a comfortable silence. "Which one?" Talon asked. They had made several. Permission to establish a permanent residence that incorporates both environmental requirements, a true home for both of us. Her voice held wonder at the concept of Luminan and a human sharing daily life, creating a shared existence between worlds. "Home," Talon repeated, savoring the word. "I like the sound of that." As the station continued its orbit through space, they stood together at the viewport. Watching stars that once seemed to separate their worlds now appear to connect them pinpoints of light, drawing constellations of possibility across the darkness. "I believe," Nyalira said softly, "that what began as an unexpected statistical anomaly may eventually become a new norm." "A bridge between worlds," Talon agreed, "starting with us." Behind them, the station hummed with the activity of humans and Luminans working together tentatively at first. But with growing confidence, Before them stretched a universe of unexplored potential. And between them flowed a connection that had already proven stronger than the differences of biology, culture, and the vast distances of space itself. "I agree," Nylira whispered, echoing her words from the crystal caves with a smile that now came easily to her purple features. "I still very much agree."